All right. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. We're talking fresh greens today. Peg Beer is with us. I'm just going to go over a few things while we let everybody get logged in and get settled. For those of you who attend these classes regularly, welcome back. As always, Merry Christmas. I cannot believe December is flying by. For those of you who are new, this is a webinar format, so it's a little bit different than a lot of the Zoom meetings you may have attended. We can't actually see you or talk to you during this class. So when you have questions, you're going to hit that Q&A box on your Zoom menu. Type those questions in, and I'll be monitoring that for Peg. Quick introduction of Peg, who really for most of you I know needs no introduction. Peg works at our Fair Oaks store this time of year in our fresh greens section, our annuals house usually. She does a little bit of everything and has a lot of gardening knowledge. She previously did our Gardening Advisors television show and has been teaching classes with us for many years. So Peg, I know you do these Zoom classes all the time, so you are a veteran at this. I think that about covers it on my end. Just a couple of quick notes for those of you who are new. We do record these classes, so we'll be sending out a link to the recording following the class, as well as a coupon, so that you guys can come check out our store. And if you have any questions or issues during the class, please feel free to send me a note. You can send a chat or send it through the Q&A. I'll be monitoring that. And with that, Peg, as always, thanks for being on here, and I'm going to go ahead and let you get started.
Thank you. And it's always my pleasure to be here. I really have enjoyed doing these Zooms. I think today is my last day anyway for Zooms this year, but I am looking forward to doing more come our winter series, okay? Because I love all the aspects of growing and designing and enjoying nature. But today we're concentrating on decking the halls, and that's indoor decking of the halls. And how do you do things that will last through the season, how you cut your greens, how you condition your greens, and how I even do specific types of arrangements. But before we get into that, I utilize Danny Kep's wonderful help for me. He often helps me with these Zooms. Danny, be careful, because this is one that I just did for a customer, and she brought in a basket. Okay, if you can just see that somewhat. This is a basket that she plans to use beside her fireplace. And they burn the fireplace occasionally, and so it's warm. And greens that are not in water just simply won't survive that kind of thing. And if you've got fresh greens on the mantle that are not in water, neither will they. So baskets are wonderful things to use all year long, but I love them particularly at Christmas. And this was I tried to leave some of it so that you could see the handle on the basket. And what is in here is a plastic container that holds water and has wet oasis in it. Okay, Danny, you can carefully put that back for me now. That's sort of a inspirational thing. Okay, and even this would be something that you also could use outdoors. Now, you'll see this again and again through this, but this is a plastic container that holds water and is in that basket. And also, this is not wet so that I could handle it easily up here, but this is blocks of oasis inside this container, and you will need to add water to this container every 2 or 3 days so that it doesn't go dry if you want to last through the holidays and actually into January. Outdoor type containers which I'm going to do an in-person presentation on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock for the outdoors. I've had customers tell me they last through January. And so that is how that is done. I'm going to talk you through just a few pictures that I have done in the past and that I have really enjoyed, again, for inspiration or for you to say, I like that particular one or some adaptation of that, and talk just a little bit about it. Then I'm going to go into exact how to. Okay, so let's go with that. All right, this particular container is in a design bowl. And you know what, Danny, I do think, do I always forget something these days? Could it be that it's Christmas time? I strongly suspect if you can have her radio down to the annuals, that there is a cart down there that has my tools on it.
Okay.
Because I can't do anything without tools. And it has a couple of branches of evergreens. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this while he gets the tools that I forgot to bring up here. So this is in a plastic designer bowl. It could be in any kind of bowl that holds water, but it has wet oasis in it. And I'm going to talk you through the traditional arrangement, which is modified according to the size of your table and the width of your table. And so what does it accommodate without getting in the way of your guests? I always like accessories and I enjoy using candles. I like to be very watchful of using candles at the holidays because we're all easily distracted, particularly when we have guests. And it's quite easy to forget, gee, that candle's still burning. I like to use them wherever possible behind glass. And that's a very attractive way also. Okay, Danny, thank you so much for that. Now let's move on to the next one.
Janet's bringing.
Excellent, thank you. Now this is on that same table, okay? But it's a little different. It's all boxwood, all cut boxwood. And again, made in those little designer bowls because they're so easy for me to work with, okay? And when I say, well, I can't show you yet, I'll show you later. Okay, all right. So it's in that, and the little boxwood pieces are pushed directly into that wet oasis. The one in the center is long but low. The one on one end is somewhat tree form. I do not shape my oasis into tree form. I use the branches to form that form. And if I push a boxwood piece in the bottom and then one in the top and one midway in between, I need the branches also where they're on that same cart.
Okay,
I'd love to have what was on that cart.
okay, okay.
Okay, there's a cart down there, honey. This is okay, but the cart already has the stuff on it. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, back to this. When we're doing a tree, the way to keep from losing your shape is to decide how wide you want to be and do that. The first branch is around the bottom. How tall do you want to be? And you put that branch in the top. And then midway in between, you mentally draw a line as to where you want that tree to be. And then if you fill in, you're not going to lose your symmetry there. The other one is somewhat rounded. Now come back to me for a moment, Danny. I want to tell them what I feel is vitally important. Those containers were in containers that hold water, okay? However, there can frequently be condensation underneath containers. And so I go to the greenhouse and get these cork boards and they come in different sizes. And usually I have some sort of covering on the table. And even if I don't, I'd still use small ones of this to protect my table. That is so important because you do not want water stains on your good furniture or even not so good furniture. Okay. So I highly recommend these. They're wonderful, not just under your house plants, but again, under these things. And I even use them as mats for things I'm taking off the stove. So these are invaluable, and really stress that you need to have them under your containers at all times when you're working with furniture. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, sometimes it's really nice to just do little individual arrangements, and they can be done in wine glasses, or they can be done in little votives, and it's sweet. This one's got a couple of little roses, some boxwood, and the magnolia leaves are cut off as just leaves and pushed gently into that wet oasis. And so that's another delightful thing that you can do with tiny arrangements. Okay, Danny. Outdoor or indoor, the mixture of greens when you're selecting them, think in terms of what you like, number one, but texture and form changes the same as you would design your garden outside or the outfit that you're wearing. It's nice to have textural changes and, of course, color and whatever. This one has a lot of green, the shiny, wonderful leaves of the magnolia, and most of the magnolia has that beautiful brown back, which is terrific. And this can be done in any low-cut bowl. Mentioning again that I have in the past, but I'll say it again. If you're having an arrangement outside, do not do it in glass or do it in plastic, because water outside is going to freeze and it's going to break your containers. Okay. Oh, thank you so much. Now I have my tools, and then they'll get Danny back so that he can work my. That's exactly what I needed. Yes, absolutely. And we'll just lay that right here. All right. Now I'm in business. Can't believe that I forgot that one cart when we were bringing things upstairs. Okay, Danny, let's move on with this. Okay, this is something that I love to do. I love to burn candles behind the glass where I know that it's safe. And that's a beautiful little round of design. Size could be modified according to the size of the area in which you are using it. And if you come back to me for a second, it's done in this is a round ring of oasis, and it's done for Advent. Frequently candle holders are in here, and we make the Advent wreaths with this. But many years ago, I discovered that this was really, really nice for poinsettias in the center also. And so we'll go through that, and in the process, Danny will bring something over for me to show you. Let's go to the next picture, Danny. Okay, there's the finished Advent wreath, but of course now we're going into the third Sunday of that, so you're probably done with the Advent thing. But in the next picture, okay, not that one. I'll take that away, Danny, and hand me, if you can, I know it's a little cumbersome, that particular thing. Yep, I can't get along without Danny's help here. All right, this is that same ring that has this beautiful blue sapphire. It has the magnolia, the noble fir, and it has a candle here that will be safe to burn because it's behind glass. And I love to use it in this fashion. And remember, this is what it's done in, okay? This round circle that is used also for Advent. And again, I did not bring up the poinsettia, but you can take not use the candle in this and put a poinsettia in here. And if it loses its bottom leaves, which so often they do as they age, the legs doesn't always look so good. This masks all of that, but I do enjoy this. Okay, then we'll move that, okay. And then I think before we go back, before we go back to the pictures, I want to bring up, because it's similar, sometimes we theme our arrangements and things, and I love things that are elevated. This is a little pedestal type arrangement. It holds water, and there is water and oasis in this, but I really do love the blue sapphire, and the noble fir is just gorgeous. So I've used those extensively in this one, and I'm kind of getting a little busy up here. Okay, I like it as it is, but you probably want to use some decorations. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do in that? Of course, roses would be lovely, but I also went into the shop, and son, I may not put these in exactly the right place that you're going to love it, but let me do this. You can attach these, which I'm not going to do right now. You can use beautiful glass bowls in these things as accents. Let's see how that reads. Okay, we definitely need several, and this may not be an exact right spot, but I like that. How do you feel about that, Danny? Okay.
Love it.
Yeah.
Great
Okay.
spot for it.
All right. You know what else was cute? I love the color pickup here. And this little birdie was adorable. So that little birdie might work in there too. Okay. So think in terms of, you know, what do you want to decorate with? How do you want to accent these? You don't have to act, the greens themselves are beautiful. And the fragrance of the greens are often talked about. The other thing is that you can make a bow, and you can use that as an accent. And to pre-made that little bow, put that little guy in there. You can put a little red bird over there if you wanted to. Okay, so that's another thought. You could, oh, here. Let's do this. Let's put that back in there. Okay, let's put that sweet. This is a wide ribbon, so the beauty of it is you can get those little tails to do whatever you want it to do. Okay, what happens if you use some berries to accent that red? Let's tuck some of these winter berries over in here, and that's going down into that wet oasis. I think we need 2 pieces. Okay. Let's put that one up in here. Now that becomes your focal point for this. What do you think of that? That works out pretty well, doesn't it? Okay.
Very good.
All righty. Danny, can you sit that back for me? Okay. Now, you may want a smaller one, perhaps on your dining table. And so this is why, okay, I have a wreath that you can use a candle in anywhere in a house. And you could use it for a poinsettia. This one could be a sideboard, or maybe you're serving your dinner on a sideboard. This one perhaps could be on the dining table. Maybe you could have 3 on the dining table. This is one size, and this one is another size. Now, wouldn't that be sweet? And since this has a lot of blue white in it, I moved that candle. Oh well. You could do candles in through here too. It's okay. Danny, we really don't have to have a candle. Oh, yes, we do. Can it be that one? And the globe. But look how, if you've got a longer table, now obviously you're going to sit this candle on something. But look how sweet that is. I'm trying to stay within my view here, okay? As accessories, you've got a long table. When I have all the leaves in my dining table, it'll see 12. And that's wonderful. This one, you want to keep your dining arrangements certainly where people can have conversation without eye contact. You need eye contact, okay? They say tip of the fingers to the elbow, but mine, there are people who have more height than that. So just be sure that it is low enough that you have eye contact. But this is a lovely size for that. If you're going to do duplicate arrangements, and then on the end, a small one on each end with candles in between. And I kind of like that idea. And you can decorate these or not. I really don't think they need it particularly. If you really, really like pine cones, then you could use pine cones in there also. And there's several different types, okay? This is the white pine, and that's attractive and could be used in there also. So there's many things that you can actually use. Let's go to the next slide, Danny. Okay. Now go back to the other one, will you? Yeah. There we go. Upright containers. You may have tables where you need something like this. And I like to actually use outdoor things from my garden. If you have those, these are euonymus branches and some of the grasses with pine cones and pretty much just magnolia, although there is some other types of greens in that. And so come back to me for just a moment, Danny. I'm going to show you something that I still haven't rejuvenated to the degree that I wanted to because I just haven't dedicated the time to do so. But I love the traditional, and that's what we teach. But I love to have people do their own creativity also, and to learn to look, to learn to see things in a different light. I so often do and have all my life in reality. Was recently in the state of Idaho, and oh my goodness, I saw so many things that, oh, that would make a beautiful arrangement. And there were such beautiful cones, and there were mosses, and there were nice stems, and I wanted to bring it all home. And of course I didn't, you know, who didn't, you know? But I did, and this I did last Christmas, and it hasn't been used for a while, but I decided to bring it anyway, and to show you how I sort of thought outside of that traditional thing. And the thing that brought this on was actually my daughter found this gorgeous container at a thrift shop. She loves to shop in a thrift shop. And so I said, ooh, I just love that. And I do. I love the colors that are in it. And so I went immediately to my storeroom, which is overcrowded, and got the artificial roses, which I had at the time, and I wanted it to be everlasting. And no, I am not opposed to using everlasting flowers. I love it, and I don't have to keep them watered, and I do get busy, and it's okay, you know. And so I clustered that really all the way around because it's going to be viewed all the way around. And then I wired many, many pine cones and put those in place. And now we don't have this next thing to sell. It's the fronds of a fern, and it is a beautiful fern, and we do sell the ferns. It loves shade. It loves moist areas. It does not like dry shade. It's ostrich fern. And these are the fronds of that. And I just thought they were so interesting. And then there's a little bit of ornamental grass coming out from that. And so it doesn't all have to be fresh cut greens. I just want you to use your imagination and learn to look around. Now, I also noticed while we're on this note, okay, I also noticed that we again have the little lemons downstairs on one of the tree. Now, again, these are the everlasting. And I did this for my kitchen table. These are artificial, everlasting, as you wish. And you can do it with fresh, but they don't last as long. This one lasts a long time. And it's done in a colander. Guess what? Because it's in the kitchen. And it has a piece of foam in there to which they're anchored. And then wired cones in there with some pieces of looped grapevine. Now, I really had intended to, but it would have to be temporary, okay? So you could, if it's just for a few days, you could actually tuck real greens into this. There are different ways you can use different things. And I think it's fun to do that, okay? I will probably do that this Christmas because I'm running out of time. But isn't that fun? You know, and for your party, it's okay, you know, because all you do afterwards is take it out and it's still pretty, right? So those are just thoughts. The other thing is, you know, we have so many beautiful mosses and packages downstairs. I love those. And they are so sweet to tuck into places for interest. And there again, it's contrast of materials, which is very, very interesting. Alrighty, Danny, let's go on with some of the pictures because I definitely have to do the how-to here. And let's go to the next one. Mantles. We'll go fairly quickly through some of this because I want to get deeply into the how-to. Mantles are a place where it's really important to put things in water, particularly if you have a fireplace that you use periodically. This one is a large tin container with a beautiful bow on the side, accented by pine cones, and has a lot of magnolia in it, but that is all in wet oasis. And that mantle is wide enough and that container is heavy enough to hold that in place easily. But in the next picture, you got to be sure you balance these, okay? Because that is done in one of those designer bowls. It could be in any bowl that holds water, but be sure if it isn't a stone mantle that you put something under it to protect the wood if you've got a wood fireplace mantle. And that primarily is magnolia with a few greens and some that are very wispy coming out of that. And in front of that, we're going to assume that either you aren't using the fire or you're going to put that arrangement to the side because this was a demonstration thing. But that again is a large arrangement that's used to emphasize the fireplace area, and it is in water. Okay. Now going back to this one, that the center arrangement you saw previously has two large ones on either end and is very attractive. They could be smaller, they could be all the way across that fireplace. And then again, there is to the side a larger arrangement. But all of this is in wet oasis. And as a reminder, you absolutely want to keep that oasis moist. And for me, now these are large, okay? So you would have to very cautiously fill these in place. But all of the smaller things, I recommend that you take them to your kitchen sink. Refill all of it, adding your water from the top of the oasis because that's what dries out first. And let it drain off a bit before you, just for a few minutes, or wipe it dry before you put it back in place to protect your furniture. Okay, the next one. You can, if you have a garden, certainly you can go into your garden and harvest at least accents. And I did with this, and unfortunately can't see that terribly well. But the leaves on Nandina are so attractive. I think in the next picture it shows up a little bit. Yes, it does. But that's using some of the winterberry. It's using some of the brightly colored Nandina foliage. And oh my, the Pyrus japonica is lovely at this time of the year because the blooming pieces of that are buds now. They'll open in the spring, but they're very attractive, and so is the foliage. So it's wonderful if you can go out in the garden and at least make snippets of things for small arrangements. And the next one, Danny. Oh, yes. Now, I have tried to share with you the fact that I have encouraged all my life that young people get involved with nature and get out into the garden and enjoy and appreciate the value of the garden and all of its environs. When I'm teaching, I say, take your children, take your grandchildren, take your neighbor, borrow a kid, and teach them. And I'm just so amazed. I've done that with my grandchildren, and now the Lord has blessed me with these beautiful great-grandchildren. Clara is the oldest. She just turned 4. And she loves to be in the garden. And now she's loving making these arrangements. And so when we were out gathering the other day, and the big girls were doing wreaths, and she was trying to help with that also, but she wanted to do her own arrangement. And there you could tell she's very intent upon getting that stem into place. And so if a 4-year-old isn't afraid to do this, neither should you be. And the other thing is, when you're doing it to please you primarily. So don't worry about it, just do it. Okay. Now, having said, just do it. Let me run through with you something that I've done every time I've taught this, as far as I can remember, simply because, particularly, I think for a beginner, it's easy to understand. Okay. Number one, any beautiful container that you have, or any one that's not beautiful that's covered up, you can't see it, doesn't matter. We use what we call designer bowls, and there's some round ones. This is a rectangular one. And that's what I was speaking to when I was talking about some of those designs that we just showed you. And in that is a block of wet, thoroughly wet oasis. Now, how big do you want this arrangement to be? You have to make that decision. How long it needs to be, how wide it needs to be. But let's go back for a moment. Let's go back and talk first about the greens. They need to be conditioned. In other words, they need to absorb as much water as possible. Whether you're putting them into oasis or even making a greens wreath outside, it's better if they've absorbed as much water as possible. Okay. And you do that if you're cutting greens from your garden. You do that by cutting them, bringing them and putting them immediately into some warm water and leaving them for a couple of hours to absorb as much of that as possible. And then you begin your arranging. Here at the garden center, most of our greens are bought in. And the wonderful thing is that even though they have been cut for a while, they are revived when they come to us, we make fresh cuts. You have to do that because the old cut is sealed off already. You make fresh cuts and put it into warm water and leave it in that water until you either come and buy it or we use it in our arrangements. So, having talked about the conditioning of, and the beauty of it is we do it here, okay? Having talked about that, once you've made the decision as to how long you want it to be, that's what I form my first part of this design. If you need to, measure this piece and push those deeply inside. You want that stem to go deeply inside to be sure it gets all the water it can get. That sets your length. And then you probably don't want it as wide as you do long. And so that's the next two pieces that you fit in, and that sets the width. And then you say, okay, how tall do I want this to be? You want to be able to talk over it and see over it. And that's the next one you put in. So that's how you begin. And then you begin to fill in that design, okay, without going outside those perimeters. When I do this first layer, I want to push these stems in, okay, downward into the bottom of that oasis. I don't want to do it like this, because if you do it like that, you're going to impede the placement of the top things, okay? So I'm pushing this down inside and pushing it firmly. So I will have set the shape of my design with that arrangement, okay? And then I did the next one. I wanted to add other things. And in this one, I have the cedar and some arborvitae. I have the gold that's in here. And I've added those as filler in this. You can see that I have used this to cascade over a little bit, but I've got still some contrast here going on. I then will bring over the finished product. So I showed you the very beginning, and then I showed you beginning to add the various other types of greens that you want to use. And some people don't like gold, so don't use gold. I use that beautiful blue sapphire or just green, but it's the textural changes of this that make it interesting. And you can put in and even with larger containers, the larger, thank you, Danny, the larger magnolia, this is the small because it's a small thing. You could use the full branches in here. It's very easy to accommodate that. Or I absolutely love the backing of the large magnolia. And if you trim the little nodule off the end of that, you can push that into that wet oasis. And you can see now that I have quite a contrast going on there. Not just in color, but in the texture and the feeling of the broadleaf against the fine leaf of the magnolia against the finer leaves of the greens. Okay, so that, and then I wired cones and pushed those down into place. One could use flowers, fresh flowers, artificial flowers if you chose, bows, a lot of things that you might want to decorate with. You know, here again, this is a good color for this. I love this bow, it's beautiful. You know, look how pretty that is as an accent. So it's very wonderful to find these fun accents. I like that. You like that, Danny? I like that. And then you could put in, and there's your focal. There's your, yeah, I can really do. There's your focal area. And I could have, wish we had a clip on him. He doesn't, I'd have to figure out how to mount him. Okay, isn't that sweet? Okay, so now you're ready to go. Your arrangement is done, and I hope I don't break that ball. I think I'll put that ball back.
Are those ornaments from the store?
Yes, they are.
They look really good on my Christmas tree.
There's nothing
All right.
more fun than working in a place where you've got all this stuff to work with. And when you're finished, you just walk through the store and say, oh, that's perfect. You know?
Yeah, they look
That's
perfect. on my
great.
Christmas
There
tree.
was another sweet one here that I thought was nice too. Okay. Because I love that bronzy look with it, but you can suit it to your own pleasure. Before we go to questions, Sally, I want to bring up some greens for just a minute and talk to you about tools and using these greens, because that's important. I know a lot of people come in and they buy these big branches, okay, of this is the noble fir, and this is the blue sapphire, but there are a lot of other greens too, and they really don't know exactly how to deal with that. So I have normally right in front of me and carrying around with me Felco pruners. If you need a gift for yourself or for a gardening friend, you can't do better than a Felco pruner. For me, there are no pruners as good as the Felco. If you goof up and don't sharpen your blade, you can even replace that blade, which is wonderful, you know, and keeping them clean is a good idea. So I have to have a pair of Felco pruners. And all of you who've watched me before know that I have to have a pair of the Joyce Chin scissors. I carry these in my purse, in my car, in my shed, in my kitchen. They're such a useful tool, because opening all these supposedly easy to open plastic packages, they're in the kitchen, so I can go, you know, and it's open. I keep a knife, usually a heavy duty knife, in my case, because I'm always cutting the oasis, okay? And then I have a little pair of wire cutters, because you don't use your Joyce Chins ever to cut wire. Now, with your Felcos, there is a little place, and a lot of people don't know this, there is a little tiny place in the bottom where you clip, okay, a wire, but not on the blade. All right, I need to do this quickly because I want to leave time for at least a few questions. In using this, I snip the wide ones first, because they're usually the first ones that I use. And when I place those into place, this is what I do. I trim those either with that or these fantastic Joyce Chin scissors, okay? Like so. Why do I do that? Because I do not want to tear up my oasis. Decide where you want to put this within that oasis and put it there and leave it there if possible, because you don't want to destroy the integrity of that oasis. But this is why you take those ends off and you want to push it firmly into whatever you're working with, okay? Then with all these little guys, don't throw them away. Remember, I told you you can do wonderful little arrangements. Maybe you want a tiny arrangement in your bathroom or tiny individual things. So save your little pieces. But the most important thing that I use them for, again, taking off that foliage, is as filler inside this. Once I've got those beautiful branches there, I don't want to see the oasis. And so I'll reach in and tuck these down inside. These are very useful for that purpose. So that's how I use that, every scrap of it, okay? And working with something like this, I want to decide that I want to use this as the line, as if it were the tall line behind me here. And so let's say that this is how tall I want it. And I want to push this deeply in the container. So I'm going to remove that, press that into place. But I'm going to use, now that left a knob. I'm going to cut that knob off and take away those end pieces, remember? So that it goes into the oasis but doesn't tear it up. And then I can use this in a large arrangement as it is, or more than likely, I will cut those pieces off and use them as part of the line or part of the filler. So don't be intimidated by the size of the branch that you're buying, and you can utilize absolutely every piece. Now, I'm sure, Sally, that there's bound to be something. Before I go, Prolong. I'm suggested to use Prolong in warm water, adding to a fresh Christmas tree inside. This is an important product to use as directed in the water that you're using to soak your oasis in also. And perhaps when you are adding water, you can do it too. But this helps to kill the bacteria and the bad stuff in the water. So that's a good product, okay? All right, Miss Sally, do we have questions?
Sure do. All right. We will start from the top. And keep in mind, everybody, if we don't get to your question today, you're welcome to follow up with us after the class. You can hit the reply button on your confirmation email. That goes to me directly, and I will share it with Peg to make sure we get your questions answered. So if you think of something later, or if we don't get your question today, that is an option available to you. All right, the first question for you, Peg, is from Sylvia. She wants to know about the berries. And I know you mentioned using winter berries. So her question is, do you use artificial or real berries? And if so, what plant do they come from? So do you use more than the winter berries? What are your...
Oh, absolutely. Well, the winter berries are the ones that are available to buy in, and they're probably the most popular. And another real plus is they're not poisonous, okay? I love using Nandina berries, and I love my Nandina outside. And no, my birds have never eaten my Nandina berries. However, someone in Georgia 2 or 3 years ago said in this particular town, they thought that the Nandina had killed some birds. I've never had birds eat my Nandina. And it is poison. You do not want to put it where it may fall off in your pets or your child will get it, okay? The other thing is people don't know perhaps that mistletoe berries are poisonous. And so I don't ever bring those in the house either, okay? I do the mistletoe, yes, but not the berries, okay? Certainly artificial berries can be used if you'd like to do that. If you use those outside, oftentimes they will pop when they get wet. And so it depends upon the quality and what the berry is made out of. But primarily it's the winter berries that people use in their decor. I don't recommend, unless you're going to be very cautious with it, I don't recommend bringing in the Nandina. Oh, I certainly have done that, okay? But now that I've got wee babies running around, I don't do that. No.
All right, that's handy to know for sure.
Okay.
Okay, next question for pine cones. Do you need to dry them? And if so, how?
You do not need to dry these pine cones. And I can tell you that they last forever. I did not bring an extra pine cone. I don't think. I think they're all wired. Okay. I use a heavy duty wire to wire these cones. It's an 18 gauge wire so that my hands can turn it, okay? And they're all wired so that they'll stand up. But the way that I did that, please ignore this wire. It's not there, okay? Pretend it's not there. This is how I wire them. Protruding out, pulling around, and then firmly wrap that. And then you've got your wire that you can push into things. Okay. That's for this particular thing. I might do it something a little differently otherwise, but that's also how I did the arrangement behind me. And you can spray them with a crystal clear glaze if you want to. If you go, I can tell you a little bit about these, okay, because I've had these cones for a while. When you first harvest these cones, if you happen to have done that before somebody blew them away, clearing the leaves, they'll have a lot of sap on them, and ooh, that gets all over your hands. So what I do under those conditions is I put aluminum foil on the top of a cookie sheet and put my cones on there. Don't let it get up to your eye, to your heat source. And put it in the oven for 20 minutes on a low heat, okay, like 300 degrees, and melt that down and let them cool off. And then you will have melted that and it won't get all over you, okay? So that's the only treatment, and that's just the white pine, okay?
Okay, got it. Interesting. All right. All right, next question for you. I know you mentioned the prolong. Does Merrifield treat greens with anything to keep them fresh? If so, is the substance eco-friendly and safe for composting and mulching?
I don't think there would be a problem. I haven't checked to see what is in this. I don't think it says what's in here.
Yeah, double check on that.
They dip our fresh green wreaths, and I would have to see exactly what's in that. So I can't really answer that question right now because I don't know what the components are for that.
Okay, yeah, and I can't remember.
As far as these greens are concerned, they're totally compostable. No problem with that because they go into fresh warm water and then it cools off and they remain there. So that won't be a problem. I do know that the heavy branches of these in a compost pile would take a very long time to break down because I do not compost my scraps because that does often bring the little varmints around, and I don't want to encourage that any more than I already do. Primarily my compost pile is slow. It's the leaves, it's the grass clippings, and some straw, okay? The straw is used primarily to let air get into there. And as I said, it's a slow compost, but I don't go out and put scraps into mine because I have found that it does bring the little guys I don't want around.
Got it. Okay. All right. Next question is actually about the tools. Can you talk a little bit about how to keep the tools clean? How do you clean them?
Okay, well, to oil them, and we sell some oils here, but oh, Danny, you're not a tool person with oils. What is the oil that's so popular? Anyway, a good quality oil.
WD-40 or no?
Yes,
That one.
yes. You said WD-40, right?
Yeah.
Well, any good oil, okay? Spray it on, let it sit for a few minutes anyway, and then carefully rub it off periodically to get in through here. And these need some cleaning at this point in the game. And the oiling keeps them, well, it just does a lot of good, and you want to take care of them. If you should happen to goof up and mess up the blade, you can replace the blade. Otherwise, it can be sharpened also. I would tell you that I do that. My father was a penchant for keeping things sharp, and I never really learned to do that properly. And so I come in here to the garden center and I smile very sweetly at James and he sharpens it for me. But keeping them oiled
Peg.
is important.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, we actually, it looks like we are done with questions. So just want to remind everybody, if you think of anything later, that's absolutely fine. Just let us know. Peg, thank you so much for the inspiration. I'm taking notes. I'm actually having some friends over to do centerpieces next week. So
Are you really? Well, before you go, yes, I do have an additive. I do have a class coming up on Saturday, and it will be primarily outdoor arrangements, which is just bigger than these, okay? And how I go about that. But also, I'd love to encourage you to just come into the garden center because we've got so much going on down there. Of course, we've got the beauty of the store inside where you can find all these wonderful ornaments either for the tree or for decorating. But you can walk outside and watch our guys creating these wreaths. But it's not just creating the wreaths, they're creating over the mailbox hangers. And just the other day, Leo made, and you would have to see this to believe it, he made a horse thing, which is delightful. And you can watch them doing this. We're down there making arrangements. I'm not always doing it. I've kind of slacked up in the last few days because my hands are talking back. But it's because they've made how many hundreds in their lifetime? And so I guess I'd talk back too. But come in. It's the fragrance of the greens, the color of the greens, the happy of everything. But watching our people work is wonderful. So come and visit.
definitely. Yeah. I love getting to see everybody work at Christmas. I wish I could see more of it.
It's a happy thing.
Yeah. As Peg mentioned, she is having a class in the Fair Oaks store this Saturday. You can find the sign up online for that. There's still space. And for anybody who's interested in learning how to make a wreath, we have a few spaces left for a class that's on Tuesday, the 13th at 10 a.m. So you can check that as well. There's not much space left, but if you can zip in, you can grab a space. Peg and Louie will be teaching that. So that's like the fabulous power duo right there. So that'll be a fun one. I think that about covers it. And I think this might be our last online class for Christmas. So Peg, thanks for finishing us up on the Zoom classes, and Merry Christmas to everybody.
Thank you and Merry Christmas to everyone. Come to see us.
Yes, definitely. All right. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Bye.